What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch in the Rube, presented as always by our friends at Pure Options Craft Cannabis. Experience the difference with Pure Options. At the very beginning, Jason and I went on this tour of one of the Pure Options facilities. It is unbelievable, the detail and care and cleanliness and quality, and just, I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, it's probably beyond our wildest expectations, and that shows up in their product. Go to pureoptions.com. Download the app today. Join their Pure Perks loyalty program. And they've got locations throughout Michigan, Lansing, Mount Pleasant, Muskegon, Detroit, pureoptions.com. And our Monday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Nothing makes you look better or feel better than a Muskox flannel. I am just one hideous MF otherwise. And it gives me confidence. I feel good. I look good. And you can too. If you go to gomuskox.com, look your best self, feel your best self, gomuskox.com. And for Couch in the Rube listeners, $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code FIXITINPOST. There's irony in that promo code, FIXITINPOST at gomuskox.com. Jason, how you doing, brother? I mean, I felt all of Fred Human.
It's the American way, except America has gotten soft.
What's up, buddy?
Soft.
Thank God for Tom Izzo.
Soft as a Muskox flannel. Hell yeah.
Buttery soft. Fantastic. I know we say that because we talk about them because they're a sponsor, of course, but it is really one of the first, when we do a show and I have to come downtown, I grab a Muskox. Like my first thing I go in my closet, I'm like, oh, that's going to fit perfect.
Yeah. No, it looks
Buttery
good.
soft.
If I need to go, if I'm going to see people I want to impress and I've got 7 chins and I only want to have 3 chins.
People are like,
night,
I know, we get it. You like Muskox, but it's, we
just
love
saying.
Muskox.
Yeah.
We love all of our sponsors.
Yeah, but we're not bullshitting you.
Yeah. I had some Groovy Donuts during the Super Bowl party. Actually had the Groovy Donuts people. Andrew and Monica came over yesterday. By the way, the 2 smartest people at our Super Bowl party were Andrew and Monica, who showed up like right around kickoff. That is the most perfect time without all that bullshit, that preamble Super Bowl stuff that they make you sit through.
How come I didn't get invited?
You never want to come out to Ovid.
I
refuse.
I spent the whole time on a treadmill.
Well, we figured. We didn't have a treadmill set up for you, so we figured, what's the point of inviting you?
That's fair.
It's kind of weird if you're in the kitchen on the treadmill. We're all watching the game.
That would be odd.
It's a smart way to do it instead of watching all the stuff that they're trying to tell you and all that anti-hate stuff. It's just like, God damn, can we get to the Super Bowl already? It's like, and then people that watch the 8-hour pregame show, like when they start at like 11 a.m. Who's hammering that out?
So it was an awful Super Bowl. And I feel
terrible.
And I feel really good about that for this reason. Other than I lost like almost every bet, including my teasers that I had teasers under because of those shenanigans late when they decided to score points at the very end. I didn't even know. I turned it off. Wasn't watching anymore. I was watching Mexican soccer. Thank God Mexican soccer was on last night.
I mean, you could have had 2 TVs. You could have watched both the whole time.
I mean, I during halftime,
it's a crazy concept.
The 45-minute halftime, I put on a Hallmark movie I didn't finish for real and watched like 45 minutes.
You didn't
of a Hallmark
stay tuned.
Movie.
You didn't spark a joint, a Pure Options joint, and watch Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, I had plenty of Pure Options going, but it was not for Kendrick. But I felt
I'm jealous of Philly though.
I like when something like the NFL gets its comeuppance. The NFL has the NFL season ends on championship weekend. And what I loved about this past week is the NFL got none of the buildup because of the Luka trade. So finally the NBA said, hey, you want to screw with us on Christmas? Guess what we'll do to your Super Bowl? And then it had an awful Super Bowl. So
the NBA really showed the NFL.
I love it.
That shit product they have.
I just love when something that's
it didn't do anything to it.
I know,
people still loved the Super Bowl and everybody tuned in.
Nobody loved that Super Bowl. That was an awful Super Bowl.
Philly fans did.
Other than that,
I got to say, if we ever get to one of these as a Lions fan, I would love to have a Super Bowl win like that. It's really never in doubt.
Yeah.
You're up the whole game. You can kind of talk with people and celebrate and stuff.
You're saying you don't need the nerves of like a final drive?
I know it's Captain Obvious. I'm just saying that's the only takeaway I took from that last night. And I was like doing the math. I'm like, I don't know if I can watch it with other people. Like when there's a Super Bowl I don't really care about. I mean, most of them, obviously, the Lions aren't in it, and it has nothing to do with the company that was there. I'm just going, because you do miss a lot of the game when you have people over, which is fine. I didn't really, people were talking about how bad Tom Brady was. I didn't really get to hear him, and the commercials were asked. I'm like, I didn't really see those. The halftime, I was smoking weed at half, so I didn't really see much of it. So a lot of that stuff I don't care about. I'm just talking about as a Lions fan, if we ever do make it there. But yeah, I was really jealous watching Philly and the pick sixes, and like, man, that'd be great to not have to sweat it whatsoever.
It was
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I did feel that. I felt like, boy, it would, and to have like to see your team dominate in that way must be like just true pleasure. I mean, and we'll get into.
They didn't even move. Yeah. Kansas City didn't even move it. What did they have, a first down in the first half? Or no, they didn't have a first down in the first half. It was like the third quarter before they got across midfield or something. That's insanity. Yeah, that's a thorough domination. Thorough. Shit.
Should we dig in our hot takes?
We just did. What's the next one? Michigan State. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'll go there because it was an epic day for Michigan State.
Thank God.
I don't know if I've had some.
You were there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's sitting right there. And
I have to ask now.
What I thought at halftime when they were down 50-36 and the way they were playing.
What was the vibe?
I didn't think it was going to be close. I thought Oregon was going to blow them out by like 20. The way they were playing,
But the crowd, what were they like, though?
Oh, the crowd was sort of in this, there was this sort of murmur, but it wasn't booing. It was sort of like, what is this? What's the response going to be? Nobody wanted to be upset, but everybody was like, this isn't great. You got Mateen Cleaves talking at halftime about, you got the 2000 team being, coming
they had to
out.
do a halftime thing.
Oh, my God. And yeah, it's just
Can
the worst.
we change that, though? They did that at the Lions-Washington game, and I know it's like status quo, and you got to bring the veterans out.
When do you do it?
After the game, if you win, if you don't, do you really have to do it at halftime? After a half like that, no one wanted to talk.
Then you lock the doors and you say, we're doing this. Everybody's got to stay.
Fair.
Okay.
If we win, we'll do it after the game.
I don't know if the
I
fire
would have
marshal
stayed the whole time.
Fire marshal's like, what do you mean you locked the doors? We locked 65,000 people in because we're doing this. Yeah.
Calm down, fire chief.
Yeah. So anyway, an epic game. And it was, to me, a really season-altering game for a number of reasons. Number one, just the math of it. Let's start there. If you lose 3 straight, and Michigan State's had a lot of 3-game skids in years where they've still had great seasons, and almost every time they've had a great season. Somewhere in there they've had three straight losses, which is weird. But to avoid that, when you have Michigan and Purdue with only 2 losses and you're competing for a Big Ten title, and you have the stretch ahead that you have, which, whatever you think of Indiana, that's a difficult enough game. But then the 6 games after that get really, or the 7, whatever, 10-2 right now. Yeah, 7 games after that stretch. And so just for the math of it, and if they beat Indiana now, all of a sudden they'll be 11-2 going into those 7 games, 20-4. Like, it'll just feel a whole lot different, It's that. But then there are things you need to be a good team, to be a great team, to win big. You need response. You need resolve. You need to show you can't get punked on your home court. You need to have a go-to scorer. All the things that you need to be able to get by through adversity when you're missing a guy, like your starting point guard. All the things that you need to be a team that wins something. Michigan State showed in that second half and with the response to what it was at halftime. And you knew there would be some sort of response. And they came out right away, but then they were still, down almost double digits, maybe down double digits at one point after the technical with Izzo and all that. And I thought, well, that might have been their response. At least there's that. But I don't think
we said, would somebody please guard somebody?
But it wasn't just, Jase Richardson showed that that's a guy on a given day they can lean on. I don't know if they can trust him all the time, but they have a guy that can raise their level. And I think that's important because while, if you're trying to get to a Final Four, you've got to have different guys show up in different matchups. There will also be a day if they're going to overachieve and do something truly special where they're going to face a team that's sort of better than them. Not sort of, is better than them in a lot of ways. That would beat them 7 or 8 out of 10 times. And you have to have a guy like that gives you a chance to elevate who you are. And so that shows up, which is really important. Now, I'll get into my depressing hot take about thing. I'm gonna, in a little bit. There's another side of it.
There's a depressing take
out of this, but
man,
we'll do that in a minute. But
can't have fun.
And then the other thing is, like, a lot of people were, and I didn't know Jaden Akins was ill at the time, but his second half against Shielstad was just as important. Like, that guy was the best guy. The Oregon guard, Shielstad, was the best guy on the floor in the first half. And he goes 0 for 4 with 4 points in the second half. because Akins just was stuck to him. It was a classic Akins performance. I've seen moments of that defensively from him, but it was something special. At the same level, I would argue, a different skill set, but equally as important, same level as what Jase was doing on the offensive end, because he shut down the guy that was driving Oregon, and they had 24 points. Those two things happening, and then overcoming not having Jeremy Fears Jr., which I still think overall the first half showed how badly they do need him, and I still think they do. I think he is the guy that drives them. There's an edge about him that he gives them. There's a swagger, a confidence, a shit talking that they need that he provides, and his ceiling is still very much tied to their ceiling. But you saw from a scoring standpoint what you can get out of Jase Richardson, and I think going forward, I don't think the starting lineup's going to change. I don't think you want to rock that boat. There's no point.
Why do that?
There's no point.
Yeah, what's the point?
But I think the closing lineup.
He's your best player. Jase Richardson's your best player. And you mentioned that you can't really trust him. But who on this team can you trust, though?
Well, you'd bench Holloman if you did that.
Yeah, all right.
And
I'm going to do that. I want Jase Richardson on the court at all times, especially the slow starts at the beginning of the game. He's the best player on the team, whatever you want to say about anybody else.
Okay,
he's a guy that can fill the bucket. I feel confident when he has the ball. I want him on the court to start the game, however you have to do it.
He started this last game, and he did start hot. But what I would say is if slow starts become an issue and remain an issue.
They have been, though.
Some here and there. If you then maybe you do that. But otherwise, I think the force that he is coming in, a guy off the bench of that quality, and then what's really important is who's playing late, who's playing down the stretch. I don't think who starts is that important. I'd be more concerned about the delicate nature of team chemistry and all that stuff and keeping what you have. I think that's more vital than whether Jase Richardson plays the first 3.5, 4 minutes.
I can't disagree with that. I'm just going from emotions, especially feeling at halftime the way I felt, the people on Twitter felt, I'm sure people at the arena felt. And if you can come out in the second half and play the way Jase Richardson played, I just can't sit there and go, yeah, put that guy, have him come off the bench. Now, I guess I don't want to mess up any kind of like team chemistry. I get what you're saying with that, but you get what I'm saying when I watch a game like that, and that first half was one of the worst first halves I've seen in a long time. And that goes for USC and UCLA game. It was just brutal, especially with all of the elements that were involved, being at home, having the national championship team in the house, everybody excited, and he come out and play so horribly like that. And I'm going, what is Izzo going to tell this team at halftime to get them to come out and play? Because you knew, like you said, they're going to come out and give some sort of fight, whatever. But I didn't see any of that coming. And watching Jase do what he did with the ball in his hands, I just go, how in the hell do you just put that guy back on the bench?
No, it's tremendous. You may be right if that winds up being an issue. I'm telling you, because
I know Jaden Akins. I know defensively how great he is, but we got it on the offensive side. Just do what you got to do to get the stat sheet popping. So that's pretty much it.
Akins is not the guy going to the bench. If you're going anybody to the bench, it's Trey Holloman, because he started the year coming off the bench, and his insertion to the starting lineup was something that really helped him. But that would be the guy to me.
I wasn't talking about Akins going to the bench, more of Akins being the guy. Jase is your guy. That's the guy that's going to help you win a Final Four or a national championship. Jase Richardson is the guy you need the ball in the hands.
And I still think, while he can do that, I still think, and this is why this team is growing and evolving, I still think the ball in Jeremy Fears' hands, if he can show consistency, and because I think Jase Richardson, as good as he was with the ball in his hands, like off the dribble and having some moves, I think as that stuff shows up on film, I still think he is at his very best on the move, catching the ball. I think that is where he is. He is just elite, and so I still like the ball starting with Fears in that sense, and then going to Richardson. And if Akins is spotting up and you're hit, that's fine. I think everything that happened there was good. I think it's and you still got enough time in the season that you can see. Look, if what they do, I do think you're going to see Jase Richardson's minutes increase. I just don't think you'll see him in the starting lineup. I will give you the depressing take, the column I wasn't going to write, but one of my first thoughts, so I have to share it.
Were you going to go full Los?
No.
Oh.
Well, this is a very Los take. This is exactly the column Los would have. Jase Richardson's performance Saturday cost Tom Izzo his second national title.
Cockburn.
That is a Los take. Depressing.
Why didn't you write that?
Because it's awful. It's awful. Because, and here's why, and I think it's pretty obvious to people.
Dominic's hot takes they would have been even better today.
I still think this team is most likely not quite there to win a national title. I think they can get a share, maybe win a Big Ten title. I think they have a chance to get to a Final Four. And who knows? I mean, what you want for this year, and you should be all in on this year. But and I still think it's 50-50 if he comes back, because he does have – Jase Richardson has a dad who played in the league. He knows what his son's stepping into. He doesn't need money right now. There is money in NIL. He would be handsomely paid next year. And he's in an undersized guard. And so I'm not saying he's gone. It would be much less of a surprise if he returned, no matter what happens the rest of this year, short of like a national title or something, than it was that Miles Bridges returned, for example, for sophomore year. But that said, it's these sort of performances when you're already on NBA draft radars as a potential first-round pick that move you up, that change. And then what they really need, you could argue, to be a team that's I don't want to say a front runner, but in that real conversation for a national championship is sophomore year Jase Richardson. And so that's the Los version of this take. I'm sorry to depress people. But, and it's not that he's going to – I still think it's 50-50 if he goes. When I talked to his parents about this, this is something they know their son. I think there's a chance he's gone. It'll depend where he goes and if they think he's ready. I think they are smart.
Izzo does have that thing where he can talk guys. Like, he had to tell Jaren Jackson just to go to the NBA. Like, what are you doing? Because I've heard interviews with Jaren Jackson. He's like, yeah, I was coming back. Like, Izzo talked me out of it.
He was a 6'11" guy.
Understood. I know I get it. We're all different players. I get that. I'm just saying for Izzo to be able to get guys to come back, so there is a possibility. And in my mind, it seems like you would be gone. You
get some parents, right? It was famously Gary Harris's mom said, people can. I don't care where he's in the. I mean, I think he was like 13th, 14th in a lot of mock drafts, and his mom just said, sometimes everybody can think he's cooked, but you're the one, you know your son, the cake isn't baked yet, he's not ready. And then Gary Harris wound up being miserable as a rookie, and if he had to do it over again, would have stayed his junior year at Michigan State because he hated being that young in the NBA. I do think Jase, the beauty is for Jase is that his mom's smart, been around that world. His dad played in the league and stayed 2 years, but also knows what it's like to be young there. And they know their kid.
And he gets NIL, so there's money there, so he wouldn't have to.
If he's ready to go and they think he's ready and he thinks he's ready,
top five. If he gets evaluated at top 5, right? I think that's where Izzo just runs you out and goes, no, you got to get out of here.
I think even mid-first round, it's more about if he's ready. It's not like – and he's a guy who also had a very serious injury 2 years ago. And so, if the dream is to play in the NBA, I think there's a lot still to talk. He may be back. Focus on this season would be my argument with people. See what you can get out of this because you've got a chance to do something, and Saturday was a big part of that. Do you have any other takes before we get to this?
I do. I did tune into the Pistons yesterday because I know they're kind of I don't know if they're a must-watch for me yet, but I also found a couple interesting NBA tidbits because as I'm tuning into the NBA, I'm seeing other stuff, and I know we talked about the Luka trade last week, and everybody was like, well, I think Dallas got a solid deal with this because of Anthony Davis. I'm like, has anyone gambled on Anthony Davis, either props or put him in a daily fantasy lineup in the past decade at all? Because Maverick star Anthony Davis, this is what Shams tweeted out yesterday, is expected to miss multiple weeks with a left abductor strain. Multiple weeks. I mean, this guy is you know what an abductor strain is?
It's not good. It's in the ab, right?
No, it's like in your groin area.
Oh, is it groin?
Yeah. But there's severities that can go from either you're out a couple days or months.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to see Anthony Davis in street clothes. And by the way, another fun stat. Since joining the Sixers, Paul George of Philly has uploaded more podcast clips to YouTube, 228, than field goals made, 191. So what are we doing? You're happy with this product, Graham? Adam Silver's happy with this product? You're talking about they're taking away anything from the NFL? Well, how you can get serious about it. Even if you're a Dallas fan, you just traded Luka. You got a guy with a unibrow who sits there, and anytime you breathe on him funny or look at him weird, he's going to be out with some sort of strain.
Their off-season, they're not just off-season, their off-court trade conversation stuff is better than their actual product, which is a problem they have, and it may eventually be a problem with media rights stuff. It's not yet, but like I listen to way more NBA podcasts than NFL podcasts, even though I watch way more NFL. Wow. If that makes sense.
Nothing you do makes sense, but I get what you're saying. Though. Yeah. I couldn't imagine to listen to podcasts about. I do like the NFL, but it's like Bill Simmons' cousin Sal. I listen to gambling kind of stuff like that. By the way, one more little tidbit from the Super Bowl. Yeah, I know Dominic always talks. He talks about his prostitute ex-girlfriend, but I think Travis Kelce possibly could have one either equally or crazier. Travis Kelce's girlfriend, when they broke up in 2022, what is her name? Something Nicole or something like that. Drea Nicole. She was at the game yesterday rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles and was photographed, like, I don't know, like the kids say, throwing shade or something at Travis Kelce. Because Travis Kelce lost his third Super Bowl in a row that he was in. He won the first two. He's had 3 total Super Bowls. He's got a $1 billion future wife, and this lady is going to these games and trying to shit on Travis Kelce. Like, I understand he was a notorious cheapskate or something like that, and you probably hate him because he did leave you for a talented billionaire, but really going to the game, like, you really showed him.
But I would expect it. Like, if Elizabeth came to me tomorrow and said, Taylor Swift wants to date me. And I'm not saying those two things overlapped. I'm just saying if she came to me and said,
Elizabeth says Taylor Swift wants to date her?
If that happened, even in that scenario, I would fully understand it and endorse it. I would be a little sad, but I would be like...
You would have no choice but to endorse it. What do you mean?
I mean, no matter how many muskox flannels I put on,
right?
I can't compete with Taylor Swift. Well, actually, this blue one does make my eyes pop. But most, it would be tricky. I
just love that people would get so irate. It was actually when I see Taylor Swift, I go, it's a nice lady to look at. Like, when you see nice ladies to look at, everybody gets so fired up and angry, like she's going to take away your football or something. Like, Taylor Swift is not going to let you watch football if they show her 3 times. It's just wild. They get super pissed about it. But
I got one more quick one before we get to the listener takes.
All right.
I think it was Ebling today asked Tom Izzo about the conference tournament. He's been asked a lot just about, like, the importance of regular season conference tournament. And Izzo's been pretty consistent on this, how he values the regular season more. And there's this talk, because it's a 20-game schedule now and you don't play everybody, very few teams twice, is there more value on the conference tournament? And if anything, there's more value on the regular season. The grind is harder. The more single preps. It's more equal in some ways because you just play everybody just about once. You got to go out to the West Coast at some point. You got to survive this thing. So that, and not only that, the banner still, if you want a banner that says Big Ten champions, you have to win the regular season. The regular season is the title. And it's just a cool grind. It's different than the NCAA tournament, right? I love the NCAA tournament for different reasons. It's one of the coolest things they have. It sucks that the ACC values its conference tournament more. I mean, they play a lot of meaningless basketball for 2 months. The other problem is the Big Ten tournament will always be determined by the seeds created by the regular season. So even if you think the regular season at any point is less equal, less fair based on scheduling or whatever, that's still determining who plays who in the postseason tournament. And then you have a postseason tournament that a number over the years of top seeds have checked out of in the semifinals. So if your top teams aren't playing with desperation, and then your championship, the NCAA tournament's already said doesn't affect seeding. It ends 10 minutes before the brackets. So nobody has time to celebrate. Nobody cares. We've moved on. If the Big Ten ever wanted its tournament to become a thing, it would need to move its championship game to Sunday and not care so much about TV and that lead into the brackets. It would have to go to Saturday. Sorry, the championship game would have to go to Saturday. Even then, it wouldn't do it. But we need to stop asking this question. The bottom line is the regular season is the title in the Big Ten. The Big Ten tournament's cool. It can be a meaningful title of its own for teams that get injured during the year, and it's a chance to show your teeth or make a run, and it can springboard postseason runs. There's lots of things it can have meaning, but the Big Ten championship is the regular season. Let's stop asking it. Let's just understand it, and let's embrace it. All right, let's dig into these. So,
would you be pissed if Elizabeth left you for Travis Kelce? Because I know you mentioned Taylor Swift because you just didn't want to mention a dude. So would it? Obviously, who would be mad if the wife left him for Taylor Swift?
Would I get the house then? I don't like.
Well, yeah. What would she need the house for? She's going to move into his giant mansion. She'll leave that shit.
As long as she left me my treadle in my house and one.
But you can't be mad at that, right? Like if Treese left me for some dude, like that was like I mean, Travis Kelce. I'd be like, fuck, what can I do if Travis Kelce's here to take Treese away? I mean, what is she supposed to do?
It would suck.
I get that.
It would suck.
Well, no kidding. It would suck to lose your wife to anybody.
I would understand though. Yeah.
Yeah,
to some degree.
I wouldn't I'd be bitter. I'd be like his ex-girlfriend showing up.
I'd be a little annoyed at this sense because my wife does not value athletic achievement in any way. Every time I've tried to show off athletically, she's been reading a book and not paying attention. And so the idea that she would wind up with Travis Kelce, who she would value at no higher level than anybody else in the world,
I think she
would drive me nuts. Hey, man.
She might watch him play sports and go, oh, so that's what sports look like, right?
She didn't even understand downs in football. How would she understand that's what sports look like? I don't know. It's.
Oh, there's so many jokes there. I can't do it.
Let's dig into these listener hot takes.
So many downs. Eric Schultz first, of course. Number one, you can't say enough about how big of a win that was. 2, commercials are ass. Super Bowl commercials are expensive ass. They're terrible. They're no different than the normal crap we see, except the cost. The fact that thousands of people make 6 figures to come up with this nonsense is mind-blowing.
Couple things. One, yeah, he's talking about the MSU win, and I think you're 100% correct. The commercials have gotten worse over the years, and I can't even remember. Somebody explained this at one point, but
it's because we know how much they cost.
Well, there used to be more writers available to do these sort of things, and that's changed. The industry does not hire as many. The talent is dispersed and based on where it goes for TV sitcoms and other things, and there just aren't as many people out there writing these commercials at the high level they used to. I think that's part of it. You get a few good ones. I thought the Harrison Ford Jeep one was good. I mean, you get a few moments.
I didn't know what that was for. I thought Harrison Ford was trying to bring Republicans and Democrats together. Next, all of a sudden, he grabs a Jeep key, and I'm like,
loved it.
What the fuck? And it was like a 9-minute Jeep ad. It wasn't great. It was wild. It was weird.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. But we know everything. Every time we'd see a commercial that we didn't like, either me or someone else would be like, wow, that was $8 million?
I always try to think, do I remember the product they were selling at the end? Because too often I don't. And then that's not a good ad. Like, to me, like if Groovy Donuts or Muskox or Pure Options had an ad, like you'd want to make sure at the end of it, not only how you felt about that company was important and their product, but that you remembered the name Muskox or the name Pure Options. Like you'd want to make sure you remembered it. And a lot of these, not only are they not funny or entertaining, but you forget what they were selling. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, that makes no sense.
Just have Couch on, do a live read.
There you go.
I'll remember it. Dominic next. Number one, Jason, tell me why Graham can rip Lee Corso but not Will Tiemann. Why he can rip Matt Wenzel but not Los. How can he be mayor of Lansing when he is controlled by Michigan lobbyists and special interests? 2, if Graham tells Izzo at the Final Four that his friend Dominic's dying wish was to see Izzo wear a suit one more time, I will buy him 36 Groovy Donuts. Oh. If Izzo agrees, I'll buy him 100 more. If Tom asks what I'm dying from, it's a cute post-prostitute drama or APPT. Bonus. Jason's gut feels DeAndre Hopkins' touchdown are the best part about gambling, and it warms my heart. The worst part about gambling is Graham giving me Dallas Goedert delusions. Stick to woke politics, lib.
I got to say, I mean, I lost it. I think I'm done betting the Super Bowl. Maybe done watching it unless
That's
the lines
impossible.
are in.
You're still going to do your shit, no touchdound bet.
That one was that was the least of my problems. Dallas Goedert was a bigger problem because not only
he only had 2 catches.
Yeah, not only that, it's a bet. I don't know if this has ever happened to you before the Super Bowl, but there are 2 weeks between obviously the last game and the Super Bowl. So when the Super Bowl props first come out, I glance through them, and if I see something I really like, I bet it. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I go back through, I start looking at them some more, and then later on, right before the game, I do. I
bet against yourself.
I accidentally bet the same Goddard bet 3 times and lost all 3. I was just annoyed.
Well, you really liked it.
Yeah, I loved it. And
I know. I had
work.
Goddard anytime TD. And
by the way, Harry just texted. What an ass. I cleaned up, boys. Fuck KC.
Hey, I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
I know it's the final. Everybody, with the Rick Darnell was sitting there like, put your money where your mouth is. I'm like, you know what? I think Kansas City's going to win this game by 2 scores. And I put the money line. I had Spartans money line. I had Chiefs money line. Boo. Thank God for DeAndre Hopkins, though. Kind of stop the bleeding there. Ryan Allen next. MSU would be much better off if Jay started and led the team in shots over Akins. Akins has almost twice as many attempts as Richardson. If you switched them around, this offense would be much better. They won't make that move, but should at least swap Richardson and Trey. And from Corey Ostrom, Jase and Carson Cooper should be inserted into the starting lineup immediately. Jase is the bucket getter, and you can't leave 29 points on the bench. Holloman to the bench, and somehow Izzo spins it as not a demotion. Booker should be the first big off the bench.
So a couple things here. I do.
Don't coach my team.
I like Zappala starting because he works in certain matchups and not others, and you find it out real quick. And when it works, it really helps you. He's had some moments in matchups, like I think it will work against Indiana because Indiana's got Ballo as a big dude, but he's not going to pull you away from the basket. And when it works really well. And when it doesn't, there is nobody that they pull faster than Zapala. There are times I'm like, wait a sec, Cooper's already at the scorer's table? There's like 18:54 remaining in the first half. Like they take him out after like 2 possessions. So they don't wait. They see if it works. If it doesn't, they make a move. I don't think you need. And it's often Cooper who's coming in. So I don't think you need to make that move. The idea that Booker should be the first big off the bench. The problem with Booker is he is sometimes fantastic. In certain matchups, I think he makes a difference, especially the more talented another team is. He seems to make a difference. But he's not consistent enough to trust that. He hasn't earned that first big off the bench thing. If he comes in and he's having a game, he's definitely one of those guys you want to react to and say, okay, this is a Booker game, and ride him a little more. But he hasn't earned the idea that you'd go with him off the bench. First, I don't think. In terms of who starts, I've said this in the open. If you're going to make the move, it would be Jase Richardson for Trey Holloman. I think you could do that because I think Trey can handle it, and I think he was off the bench to start the year. And if you need to do that, you do it. But I also don't think that we get caught up in the starting lineup thing. And I get if slow starts happen, that's an issue. But so much more matters about total minutes and lineups down the stretch. And I think what happened with Jase Richardson just fortified that. And there was a point this season where they were moving that way, and then he started to struggle a little bit and sort of hit a freshman wall. So we'll see if he's over that. I mean, I can't. It was either at Ohio State, and he struggled that game. There was games around there early in January where they were making him the true backup point guard. I think he played 4 different stints as the backup point guard, not off the ball. And that was the big change they made in the second half here. I think that's more important here, right? They brought Trey off the ball and had Richardson on the ball as the backup point guard. I think that may be something they go to more. But I also think he as a scorer is very effective when he's catching the ball on the move. The other thing to watch now, too, is Richardson just put a 29-point game on tape. And again, he's going to be an NBA player. He's a really good player. I think he'll be able to get his regardless. But he is going to become a greater priority of scouting reports. And so they'll have to watch that, and other guys are going to have to respond to that as well.
MZO next. Izzo will only marginally increase Jase's minutes without him playing 30-ish minutes per game. MSU ceiling is much lower. But how much lower? Like, what are we talking? Like, when MZO says that? Like, MSU ceiling is much lower? Like what? Like first-round knockout in March or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't I agree that, and I think MSU will react in the postseason. I think Izzo's not trying to, I've said this a million times over the years where it hasn't panned out, but Izzo's not trying to lose here, right? This will be a very interesting stretch. I think Indiana is a more difficult game than their record. They've lost 5 straight, 7 of 8 or something like that. But they just lost by 3 at Michigan. They lost by 1 to Purdue lately. Like they haven't quit yet, and they got a lot of talent. They've sort of underachieved. Their guards are just okay, but they've got some size issues. But beyond that game, say Michigan State gets past Indiana, the beauty of the stretch that they have coming up is it's going to test them and pressure them in all sorts of ways. And the cream sort of rises, right? If Jase Richardson ought to be playing 28, 30 minutes a game, they'll see that. Everybody will see that, and it'll start to happen because you're not going to have as many games against the Penn States or Nebraskas of the world where you're up, 27 points in the second half and you don't really know what's what. Those days are pretty much over for MSU. They're going to be in competitive games where who they play and win is going to make the difference, maybe between winning and losing. And so they're going to have to make that decision correctly.
Travis Maynard next. See what happens when you let a guy cook longer than 2.5 minutes at a time. All non-Fears point guard minutes should go to Jase, and if the offense is struggling, it should also go to Jase. A point guard that facilitates but also can score changes everything.
Yeah, I still think Fears is the engine. And I'm not saying that you don't put the ball in the NBA. They do this a lot better, and secondary ball handlers and do that. I'm not saying you can have Jason Fears out there together and have the ball in Fears' hands more, Jace's hands more. But I think, Izzo brought something up Monday during the presser Monday that I agree with, and I've seen happen a lot. Right when there's a guy who's out unexpectedly, or a star who's missing or a key player, sometimes that next game the team actually plays better or finds a way to respond and it all works. And they didn't out of the gate, but they ultimately had that great second half. That would not sustain itself. You want to talk about lowering your ceiling? If they played the rest of the season without Jeremy Fears Jr., they would not win a Big Ten title for sure. And I doubt they'd get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Like I think he makes
no one
that
wants
make a
him
difference.
wants him to leave.
Correct. So I just think that sort of needs to be.
It's kind of extreme, It's like,
well, yeah, but they're just saying that
Jason, should start maybe.
Yeah, again, but not over Fears. Is all I'm saying.
Ken Chu next. The refs couldn't overcome Philly's defense. God, I want a defense like that.
I thought they were going to try at the beginning of that first call, that offensive pass interference call.
Yeah.
This is good. And then there was a call the other way against Dallas Goedert or whatever that was so much worse, and then it was just too bad. I mean, I had never seen in the I guess that Super Bowl a few years ago against the Bucs, it might have been similar, but in the Patrick Mahomes era, I couldn't recall a game where his team and that team got manhandled the way they did. It was
the offensive line was getting pushed around.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Jebediah, 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Don't care how sweet BJ's trick plays looked. I want a Super Bowl, and you get that from building in the trenches. Get it done, Brad. And from Oasis Dog, give Cleveland whatever draft picks they want for Garrett, and use the rest on the defensive line and secondary. The cap isn't real. Who cares? Just fucking win. And bonus from Jebediah. Legit thought Izzo was going to strangle that ref after that awful Zapala foul late in the Oregon game. Protect that man at all costs.
Izzo seems to understand the line between getting a tech and getting thrown out pretty well.
He was really testing that line.
Yeah, Solari.
Which I wouldn't have blamed him.
Solari asked about that today. He didn't give a great answer into it, but it was. You know how I tell shitty stories.
Yeah.
Why don't you write something?
Solari sometimes asks shitty questions in this vein. It's not a bad question, but it's a good question. But the way he phrased it, he started by saying, "I want to ask about the line," and he was talking about the line between getting a technical foul and getting thrown out, and how you straddle that line and as a coach. But he started, I want to talk about the line. And I was thinking, is he talking about the handshake line? Is he talking about what line?
Talking about the betting line for tomorrow night?
Yeah, like what? And so it took a minute to get to it, and I think that disrupted the flow. And that's I certainly I start every story without explaining who the characters are or what's happening or getting straight to the point in terms of talking. So I certainly understand. I'm not bashing.
That sounds
anybody.
like a lot of pressure. You have to not only ask a question in front of a bunch of people to a Hall of Famer, you have Graham Couch next to you taking notes on what you did wrong.
And then going to talk about it.
And then going to talk about it and then proceed to tell a story that will bore 100 people.
Yeah, well, that's
why this show's great.
That is a story, by the way, presented
Graham.
presented by our friends at Midtown
Graham.
Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. An awesome place for any occasion. Planning to meet Matt Carini there this week for an American Stout and to talk about some journalism things. You might run into us.
It was an okay question. Here's what you did wrong, Chris. Just pass him a piece of paper.
If you are downtown for any reason, Midtown Brewing Company is a great place for a meal, a date night. Make it a date night. Come on downtown, and I'm telling you, you will. Your significant other will think, boy, they put some effort into thinking about this place and the menu and the character of it and the drink selection. I love the cozy and spacious vibe, as I like to say. Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing.
T-Bone's dad next. Not even a hot take. There is a 100% chance that ref crew from Saturday gets sick with Izzo, rightfully spitting in their faces for 40 minutes. Sorry to wish that on someone, Graham. I am typically a germ-conscious hex yeah fella.
Yeah,
Bumpity bump hex yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, I would have throat punched Izzo if he'd yelled at me when he was in L.A. with a cold, and I was one of the players. I've been like, we're not doing this. We're not doing
Cockburn.
this. By the way, Jebediah's first part we didn't get to, and Jebediah and Oasis Dog on the Myles Garrett thing. Do you feel differently? We can react too much in the moment. Do you feel differently about what the Lions need to do with Myles Garrett at all after the Super Bowl?
I would. Giving up 3 first-rounders, I don't know. I guess I can be talked into. If you tell me we can get Myles Garrett and you put it in front of me, I go, all right, do it. But as I talk about it in 3 firsts, and if we add Terry and Arnold or J-Mo or something to that effect, then I'm like, eh. But most certainly after seeing that last night, I desperately, even before the Super Bowl last night, I want a defense like that can get to a quarterback. That was the most frustrating part. Not even, I mean, the Washington game sucked ass, but the frustrating part all season long, even though we won 15 games, was that in some of those games we just couldn't get to the quarterback. That was the most frustrating part. So, yeah, I want Myles Garrett. Let's go. Fuck the cap. Pay the luxury tax. Whatever that is.
No, I
I desperately want. I mean, now Darius Slay's got a ring. Like,
did you think any different of the Lions' chances of beating Philly after you watched that game?
No. I think that we could obviously have been, if we didn't play as poorly as we did against Washington, I mean, we could have beat Philly. Absolutely. If our offensive line went 100%, or not even 100%, because no one's going to be 100% healthy at that time of the year, I trust our offensive line when those guys are at least 75% healthy to not get pushed around like KC did. Because no matter, I mean, people want to goof on Mahomes, and he ended up putting up a decent stat line in the box score with a couple of, that last-second bomb to Worthy or whatever. But no one's running behind, if you can't be a quarterback behind that offensive line, no matter who you are. Vintage prime Tom Brady or anybody. Montana, if you're running for your life like that. Hopeless fanatic next. Philly exits playoffs early last year. They are aggressive in free agency and retool and go all the way this year. The Lions could and should do the same. And Bake Take, Kansas City dynasty is dead.
I don't think it's dead.
I think it's far from that.
Not when you got Mahomes. Because
you have Andy Reid, you got Mahomes.
And I know Reid said he's going to do at least one more year, maybe so. But even you got Mahomes. Like, I don't, I've talked about earlier the idea that the Lions are the only, other than Kansas City and Mahomes, like, I'd rather be nobody else for the next 2 years than the Lions. I like, even Philly. Like, I like what the Lions have for the next 2 years. Now, obviously, Philly looked really good, and you start to, I don't know their cap situation and all that stuff, but.
Well, they were handed Saquon Barkley, who turned into an MVP running back. So
that helps. But Kansas City, like, I don't know that I'd switch places with Philly next year. I mean, I might. I'd have to. Certainly, that performance makes you rethink it for the Lions. But for the next 2 years, I would flip places with Kansas City just because Mahomes is Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like, that's still. There just aren't many guys ever like that. And I know he had a bad game, but I'm not selling Mahomes stock.
Jordan Villarreal. Next. Last night was just another night for Lions fans. I don't think any of us bothered to watch. At least I heard KC got the piss beat out of them. Silver lining and bonus. College hockey needs to allow fighting. It's just part of the game. And Baked. Hearing the respect of Michigan's hockey coach has for MSU hockey was really cool. Reminded me of Izzo saying there isn't a thing he likes about that school, but he respects the hell out of them.
I'm not talking about Michigan.
It was interesting to hear Michigan's hockey coach, and this was, I can't remember if this is my question or another one, but it was, I mean, he basically said they're the bar. That Michigan State is the bar right now. Like, that is, when you hear that about a program where they were and what they are, in terms of, that's pretty incredible. College hockey needs to allow fighting. It's just part of the game. Look, Michigan State games, I sometimes root for blowouts because when you get like a 1-1 game Friday night, nobody's fighting anybody because nobody wants to get in the penalty box when it's 1-1 late in the game. That's a huge problem. When you get a 6-1 game, dudes are hitting each other, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And
But how can you incorporate the both of them to get people that are casual to watch your sport? That way we could get it on TV.
The way they have face masks, nobody's ever going to fight because you're just punching a mask.
Yeah, but still people like to see a scrum, a little fight, a little scrap. You don't have to kick guys out, really.
If I was promoting college hockey, I'd allow a little more of it. I'd have, it'd still be penalties because you want penalties, but what do you get? How much in the NHL if you fight, how long is the penalty? 5 minutes? Is it 2 minutes?
I think there's a major that's 5 and then a 2 or something. I don't know. I'll have to ask my friend Jordan.
Yeah.
So hockey aficionado.
I mean, you can fight. I mean, they have the same rules, right? You got 5, but sometimes there's like 10-minute misconduct. But I would like to see, I mean, anything that promotes the game, and I guess fighting is part of that.
Joe Noddy.
John Noddy. You always
John
say John
Noddy. I mean, is he a friend of yours? I'm so sorry.
I know.
It's like you were waiting for me to pronounce it.
I know him well, but
you could have just talked to me off the air if it meant that much. Like, you literally gave me a half a second.
And
you were like, I can't wait to say it. Say it, Rube.
Well, here's why. Because,
dude,
early on,
you get his name wrong every time. Joe, what is it? Noddy?
And my sis, John.
John Noddy.
Yeah, but I always make sure it's written right, and you always read it wrong. That's all.
Do you want to go over the typos that are in all of this shit all the time?
No,
I'm so sorry, John.
You do a great job.
John is sending them effort. Joe Noddy. Sorry, John. Every game, Adam Nightingale, green tie, white shirt. Every game, Graham Couch, muskox flannel. 2 fashion icons. Consistency.
Appreciate you, John. That is fantastic. And we will actually make that the muskox flannel hot take of the day.
Hell yeah, Joe.
If you call me a fashion icon, that is flattery that I will absolutely accept. And you too can be a fashion icon if you get a muskox flannel. Get it for yourself. Get it for the person in your life you care about, the father-in-law. Like if you're trying to get in with a father-in-law or the dad of a girlfriend or boyfriend or somebody like that, I'm telling you right now, muskox flannel is a great way to do it. Go muskox.com, promo code FIXITINPOST for $15 off your flannel purchase.
All right, Josh Inwood next. Best second half of MSU basketball in a decade. That performance is going to catapult this team into a deep tournament run. And baked, MSU will run into a highly motivated Indiana team who will play their best basketball of the season to keep Izzo from passing Bobby Knight's win total.
So I do think, I mean, I don't know how much they care or whatever about the Bobby Knight win total. They might, because it's sort of like the Miami Dolphins against the Bears in '85 when they show up with that one game and beat them on a Monday night. Like, maybe there's that to them. I mean, Izzo's going to break it soon anyway because he's just not going to go winless the rest of his career. But to not have it happen against you, maybe they do get motivated by that. I will say
that'd be a weird thing to get motivated about, though. For your whole season, and all of a sudden you're like, we're not letting Izzo get this record tonight.
Yeah, I think. I think that talent-wise, they're a chore. They just don't fit. It's not a great roster. Like, you know how Michigan State doesn't have enough shooting, and we've sort of seen that play itself out throughout the year. But you didn't know at the beginning of the year because you had a number of guys who had been over 40% shooters. There was no way to know that based on their previous performances.
So this is on Woodson then.
But Indiana, you knew it in October. Yeah, the roster construction. It's a lot highly.
But why not let an interim
roster?
Someone that's interim though? If Woodson's kind of wasting his talent, if it looks like they have some talent, to maybe just have an interim, someone maybe that might be possibly your next head coach. Some sparks from that.
Their next head coach is probably in Ann Arbor right now.
Sure, yeah. But it's better than this if they're not doing anything with Woodson. I don't know. Andrew Gauthier next. Number one, if MSU can repeat the second half from Oregon for a full game, there's not a team in the country they can't beat. Two, if MSU repeats the first half from Oregon for a full game, there are few teams in the country they can't lose to. And three, Jase at the point was a revelation for MSU hoops. And bonus, MSU women's hoops definitely should have beaten Michigan yesterday. Way too many wasted possessions with straight-up giveaways.
It was one of the more frustrating games I've ever been to. I mean, not just because, I win or lose, I was just hoping
more than the first half against Oregon? What are we talking?
Well, that was that was at least interesting. Like, they were getting punked. They couldn't handle without fears. There was something to learn from that. I was like, wow. I'm just talking not as a from a fan perspective, I'm sure there are more frustrating games. I'm talking from a watching basketball perspective. Like, Michigan State missed so many shots. Like, layup, it was hard to watch. It was just bad basketball. They couldn't, and I think Michigan's defense was decent, but there were so many moves on the run, and it just, they couldn't get bunnies. They were sloppy. It was really hard to watch. And then just from a basketball perspective, it was so ugly. I was going to write a column off the game. I started to before the Super Bowl, and I just I don't really know what to say here. I didn't have a great point. I was like, nobody really wants to read about this game. You
should have went full Los with that one. I got some eyeballs on it.
Rip the MSU women's basketball team. No, it was going to be a little critical of mine, but I also think it was just a game where they got punked by a team that had lost by 30 to them on their home court, and a young team that's got some talent. And I think.
So why can't you write about that?
I could have. The Super Bowl was coming on. I didn't think people wanted to write it, and I was tired from the weekend.
Well, now the truth comes out.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I do think it's going to be a great rivalry between those two because Michigan's got some really good young players that sort of grew up in that game, and Michigan State's going to have to respond to that. And I do think Michigan State maybe took that a little lightly. So it was an interesting game that probably should have written a column. If the Super Bowl hadn't been happening, and I thought nobody, I probably would have written a column if I hadn't been on 5 hours sleep after the hockey game the night before. Probably would have. Stop making excuses here. We'll fix this in post. Just cut it out. Apologize.
David Jackson. After the previous 5 halves of basketball, MSU really needed that 20 minutes of ball against Oregon. But an outright Big Ten championship requires winning Saturday. No worse than splitting versus Illinois and Purdue than sweeping Michigan.
Yeah, winning. So outright Big Ten championship requires winning Saturday, Illinois. I don't know that that's true. because that's what we're talking about, right? Or are you saying winning the Oregon game? I think winning the Oregon game does require it. It's going to be very interesting when you look at the schedules of some of these other teams. It is a lot of other. Michigan State's not the only one with a tough schedule down the stretch. I'd be very surprised if Michigan doesn't drop another 2 games. Purdue is the interesting one. How good are they? But Purdue's got 1 game against Michigan State, and it's in East Lansing. If Michigan State wins that game, I mean, that goes a long way toward getting at least a share of it, right? But yes, Saturday was essential.
Mike DeShelter next. Number 1, awesome second half atmosphere in Breslin Saturday. Probably biggest home win since Cassius left campus. A.J. Hoggard and Tyson Walker had some great game winners at home, but those were mediocre MSU teams. And 2, why the Mark West hate?
Mark West is the guy who hit me with a car. I don't hate Mark West. I like Mark West. That's why I brought it up. It was out of love. I mean, I was the moron who was in the street.
We're big fans of Mark West.
Yeah, we talk about him all the time. Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah.
You have that story for the rest of your life?
Absolutely. Story worth telling. Presented by
this
Midtown
guy
Brewing
now.
Company.
That's the guy that I hit? Oh, my God. I wish I could hit him again.
Yeah. 100%.
Love Mark West. Skylar Verdon. Biggest problem with college hockey is I can't find any of the fights in the replays because the NCAA thinks fighting makes you the devil. Want to see some of the fights from the Michigan State-Michigan hockey game, but can't find them anywhere.
So they're not on the broadcast?
It's the American way. Except America has gotten soft.
They don't show them? That's ridiculous. No. They don't. Jesus, that's just dumb. That's
Shield us from fighting. Please. Munfield Keg. I was at the game on Saturday, and the up and down nature of the game and the emotions of the crowd and coaches was really something to see. At 70 years old, I have no clue how Tom does it. Well, he gets the Limitless pill. They give him a prescription of those.
Yeah.
What happens when you're a Hall of Famer.
And I think it helps if you're the one competing. You're the one in it, too. I mean, he does have good energy for a 70-year-old, and you hope that doesn't change at any point. And some guys work well into their mid-70s, so you never know. At some point,
when you wake up a Hall of Famer and you look at your bank account, and everybody loves you and kisses your ass for the most part. Yeah, unless you lose a terrible game, it's got to be fun.
And while you are recruiting, while there's still a grind in recruiting, and there's still it's easier than it used to be in terms of budget and private jets and all that, and staff help, but also the culture you want is created and set and. He was talking about just during his most recent press conference, a coach, I think it was Steve Alford, who reached out to him, was just talking about like he has a culture like nobody else in college basketball when you look around. And it's true when you look at some of these places that have spent a lot of money, like Indiana, on a roster, and it hasn't really worked. And most of those places, and so he does have one of the better cultures. I don't know if it's the best. I don't want to say that because I don't know other cultures. But I think that helps fuel it. When that part of things you've got to nurture, but you don't have to create, I think at 70 it would be a lot to try to set that sort of culture.
Matt C. next. Number 1, thank you, Jase Richardson, for saving MSU's Big Ten title hopes. He is our go-to guy. Now I don't have to submit weekly hot takes about how Izzo needs to retire, and we need to get Nate Oates here. Damn. 2, after watching Philly smack around Mahomes, Brad Holmes better trade for Garrett or Crosby. A great front four is how you stop great quarterbacks. Hutch saying you can't have too many guys on the D-line is the most clown take of 2025 so far. Worse than any of Graham's all-timers.
Wait, Hutch saying you can't have too many guys on the D-line is the worst clown take? Why would that be?
I think is Hutchinson saying you can't have enough guys. Like
right.
You need more. Like you need the most guys you need.
But why would that be a bad take?
Right. That's what I think Matt C. might be misconstruing this or something.
Yeah, is it a pure option? Too much pure options. Like pure options.
Why does pure options always get the blame when people gaff?
I'm not.
Though? Like I've had some gaffes that were not involved with pure options. Pure options helps me not make gaffes.
But I'll say this about pure options: I have made many dumb tweets with whiskey in my system over the years. Yeah. I have never.
Which ones?
Well, about half of them. I always blame them on whiskey, but it's not always. But I've never has pure options made me have think, I'll tweet this stupid ass thing. Like it's never done that. So if you're worried about what you may tweet or say to your wife or anything like that, pure options is not that sort of issue. It'll just make you feel a whole lot better. Again, pureoptions.com for specials and download the app.
The voice of Gorham softball. is next. Giving Hurts the MVP is as boring and predictable as the old whites on my timeline hating the halftime show. I just don't get this halftime show. I don't understand it. Can you just watch a halftime show? Maybe the beat's all right. I don't know. He's shitting on Drake. I know you don't know who Drake is, but like, I just don't. What do you want? Fog hat at halftime? Fucking the Eagles? I mean, I know I'm white. I like music too, but like, I don't know.
This old white right here,
it
like,
ain't for you. Let's move on.
I was on a treadmill and I was like, you know what? I got 45 minutes left in a Hallmark movie. I fast forward through a little of that movie because it's a little slow, but ultimately I had something else to do, and that was much more up my alley. I didn't, the Hurts thing. He played well enough late. I was wondering where they were going to go with it for a while because their defensive line was the dominant story, right?
Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, or what was that D end or defensive lineman had like 2 or 3 sacks and was really, I was like, boy, this. But Hurts, I think, earned it. It is boring. It always goes to the quarterbacks. But I was happy for Hurts by the end of the game. For a while, I thought they're going to have to go to Hurts.
Everybody needs to be entertained at all times during the Super Bowl. Hurts MVP, boring. Halftime show, boring. Commercials, ass. It's like, all right, maybe next year don't tune in. Kurt Wisniewski, number 1, Tom Brady should quit Fox and never call a game again. 2, Greg Olson and Troy Aikman should be permanently appointed to commentating the Super Bowl. I don't know. I never hear it anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people are at parties. I didn't, I didn't think Brady was that bad. I listened to most of it when I was on the treadmill.
Of course.
Aikman's my favorite. I know a lot of people like Olsen's good too, but Aikman is
favorite.
Aikman's my favorite. Aikman and Buck together is my favorite duo
because of just their voice. Like, I mean, do you really? Aikman is so good at word salad and then saying something right until the ball is snapped.
He puts me at ease. He's like a talking pure options. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Whatever it is. When I hear Aikman and Buck, I think big game, and I enjoy listening to them. And I always like one of the things about. I used to really like the Manning cast and stuff like that, but I don't want to miss Aikman and Buck when they're doing Monday Night Football. I prefer them.
Mike Scott next. Number 1, we've had some good ones, but in general, the Super Bowl is the biggest waste of time each year. I watched 0 seconds yesterday for the first time ever. Best decision I made all weekend, easily beating out bailing on the second half of the MSU basketball game Saturday to swim. Bonus. MSU can beat anyone on any night. Awesome second-half performance, but their outside shooting woes will be the reason they lose to a less talented team in the NCAA tournament. If they shoot better than 35% from deep through in the tourney, they're going to the Elite 8.
I think the Super Bowl is the biggest waste of time. The last 3 years have been really good, and I think the problem is when you have one game left.
Mike Scott needs to be entertained at all times, or else he's going to go swimming.
And there's a 2 week
out of here.
There's a 2 week build up to it. It's going to happen.
The pregame
sometimes.
show, and then I got to sit there and watch Tom Brady tell me like to end racism or some shit with Snoop Dogg. It's like it's all barfy garbage for a lot of it. I can agree with that, but it's still football to me, and you can gamble on it. I love it. Tyler next. Net positive on my bets, and yet that was a horrible Super Bowl experience. There is not a such thing as being happy for the Eagles. That NFL season can suck off.
Wow, and you won your bets though. It's
a net positive.
Yeah, usually there's some spite. Like I will spite bet the Chiefs for the way they finish that. If you're not gonna score until the very end, don't ruin under bets at the final thing. Like don't just that. I will spite bet at some point the Chiefs because of that. I'll join Harry and yeah.
Alex Mayer, number 1, anybody that complains about the Super Bowl or halftime show is just looking for attention. Exactly, nobody is forcing you to watch them unless you're Graham and you have no control of the televisions in your house. That's true. 2, Trey, Jaden, and Kohler has sneaky good second halves.
They did. Jackson Kohler to have 14 points, 12 rebounds. I think he had 9 points and 6 rebounds in the second half. He was really good. He needed that bounce back game. He had a big bucket too. That was, he needs it. They need him hitting more of those. I thought, Jaden's second half was underplayed and he was sick, so it's more impressive. But you had a guy in Jase Richardson who was driving you offensively. The guy who was driving the game offensively before that was stopped by Jaden Akins, and Richardson was struggling when he was on him, I thought that was a really big half by those guys.
Chris K. next. Izzo has a chance to break Knight's Big Ten wins record against Indiana on Tuesday night. and no one beyond the MSU and Indiana fan bases will see it because the game is at 9 p.m. on Peacock. The Big Ten needs authority to move games to different time slots and to the Big Ten Network.
Big Ten Plus is ass.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, but it does seem like, in football, there's a lot of games at least on NBC. And it feels like, and that just doesn't happen in basketball, right? So what sucks is it was a big moment, and this was an NBC game, Peacock game, and they would say, we're going to put this on NBC or something, but instead it's on Peacock. This is just the way it's going to be. And more people do have Peacock. The problem is they don't flip to it, so you don't get the casuals, right? Unless people really want to see the game. And this is, it's one of the shitty things about modern life, If none of this is.
Yeah, it's terrible. You can see all of these games.
Yeah,
you'd have to just watch one game a week.
That's true.
Terrible times we're in.
We used to hope the game was on Raycom not that long ago with Tim Stout and Greg Kelser, and
yeah.
I remember watching, growing up. Yeah, it's true. When you think about it, where we've come from and what we complain about. I remember watching games when I was a kid, football games that weren't on anywhere, and you'd watch the 11 p.m. replay on WKAR, and like MSU hockey was occasionally or was always on public access on Channel 17,
Terrible times. You mean I have to open an app and hit the game?
Like MSU hockey and John Mangopoulos, Anybody who knows John Mangopoulos, take a drink,
Oh, my God.
He was
Mango. He was a wild one.
He was Breitbart before Breitbart, It was something.
Dude, we used to watch his show all the time, man. In high school and everything.
My buddy and I would leave messages to taunt him, and then he called us back, and we didn't know what to say because we couldn't really back up our...
John Mangopoulos, Lansing, Michigan. Like, Google that if you're looking for it.
It's fantastic. Yeah, story worth telling. Midtown Brewing
clips
Company.
on it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mango. Sparty Barb next. Hi, Graham. The longtime listener, first time submitting takes. Could have took that out. Love the show.
I'm not going to take that out.
Jackson Kohler played the best game of his MSU career to date. His play was tenacious, and his energy on the court was elite. MSU wins the Big Ten if his play continues on this trajectory.
Like, they need him to play well, there's no doubt. And he had a couple games where he wasn't, or he got in foul trouble. I'm very curious.
Big take from Sparty Barb?
I am very curious, Barb, to see his game against Indiana, because this game was the game a year ago where they could not handle Indiana's size, and they got, that was the game where Sissoko just can't do this. They had some other games like that, but it was very clear. And so they bring in Zapala, they bring in Frankie Fiddler on the wing. They get bigger, and then their guys in the program develop. And the best one of those, Cooper's been really good lately, but has been Kohler. And they didn't want to over-recruit him with a guy like Ballo, who's the guy Indiana got, who they spent, reportedly $1.2 million perhaps on. They didn't want to go do that, right? And so, but how does Michigan State hold up to that size? And a big part of that is, can a guy like Kohler, who's become close to an elite rebounder, can he hold up and rebound and do what he does against a front line like this? I'm curious to see.
DMB next. Johnny Spirit always finds a way to piss me off. Have you ever met a super fan figure so hated by his own fan base? And bonus, Jase is the only guy who gets the ball with the game on the line. Wait, where do you find Johnny Spirit to get pissed off about?
Wasn't he at the Super Bowl or something? He was somewhere.
No, I know, but where do I see Johnny Spirit news so I can get angry? Like
on Twitter.
He's on Twitter?
Well, no, people send videos of him. Yeah.
He was at the Super Bowl.
I believe so. I saw him. I think he was riding down Bourbon Street on his bike with his Spartan stuff.
How old is Johnny Spirit now, though?
Got to be 50.
That's it?
Maybe he's older. I don't know. 55. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't. He doesn't anger me. I find him a little bit sad, but he doesn't anger me the way he angers like Solari. Like, I would love to see like Solari and Johnny Spirit in a cage match. I would. You talk about hockey fighting. I would pay to see that. What 100%.
Graham.
Nick Gandhi next. Number one. It is always funny listening to the Friday show on Monday mornings, hearing about both your bets, knowing the results, and people asking about Jase hitting a wall before that performance. And two, Eagles' defensive performance reinforces the need for the Lions to get Myles Garrett.
That is a way. Yeah, if you don't listen to the podcast, a weekday podcast before the weekend games or any time before it.
Well, you should listen to our picks before it and then bet the opposite.
That's
pretty
true.
much.
That's true. Yeah.
Get the heads up there. TK, bake take. All future depictions of Uncle Sam should now be Samuel L. Jackson. Can agree with that. Yeah, why not?
I would enjoy that. Yeah.
Some dude, number one, Jason, you should have taken Graham's no Super Bowl TD bet of ass like you took your Goff MVP bet. Get yourself even. And two, let's get Myles Garrett. Let's not worry about being too good at football while we have a chance. And three, Couch, I've pondered your NFL load management BS quite a bit, and it's a little less stupid to me now than it was before. The problem is that these injuries are so catastrophic and unpredictable. I mean, a dude who can sit out 2 games and snap 12 ligaments on the second play of his return. Now we're all just glad the NFL is over, so we don't have to hear you say that, at least until August.
Well, it's already August 12th, Monday show.
July.
I've written it down. Yeah, it's going to be
a July
topic.
All over.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Jay Brew next. I'm banned from watching live basketball games the remainder of the season. I was at both games in L.A. Out of disgust, I turned it off at halftime on Saturday.
Well, I don't think a tough road trip doesn't mean it's your fault. Like, I don't and I understand what you're saying, that you turned it off Saturday, but you weren't.
I've heard from a few people that they turned it off and went and did something else.
Yeah.
And, it was it was really brutal.
You probably watched a lot of good basketball this team this year, though. I wouldn't put it on yourself yet.
Moneybag. MSU hockey dominating play against Michigan as much as they did all 4 games this year and coming out with a 2-1-1 record highlights how dumb it is that the NCAA tournament is single elimination.
It is mind-blowingly dumb, and it drives me nuts. And it's not just dumb because it doesn't make sense, because hockey should never be single elimination as a sport. It's just not. It's not like basketball where you got 80 points in a season and one shot usually doesn't determine anything throughout a game. But it's dumb because there's time to do it. These MFers start October 1st for their first game, and they end after the Final Four. And they take a week.
We're dropping MFers now?
And before the Frozen Four, they take a week off for the Final Four because they don't want to go up against it, even though it's
They take fighting out of the highlights. They don't want people to watch this great game.
Two very separate audiences. So you could just play that week. And then they have like 6 weeks of a conference tournament in which they play best 2 out of 3. They have best 2 out of 3 in the conference. It is absolutely ridiculous, and it takes away the legitimacy of the champion. The legitimacy of the champion's challenge every time a high seed does not get to the Frozen Four. Once you get there, I think it's okay because it's an event, whatever. But like those first 2 rounds ought to be over 2 weekends, home sites, and that is and the higher seed place.
Dan Campbell's tears next. Number 1, okay, Graham, after Saturday's MSU basketball game, back in the Final Four, here we go. 2, no way Lions should have beaten the Eagles, or would have beaten the Eagles. And 3, Tom Brady should quit broadcasting.
Was he that bad? I didn't think you.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I didn't hear him.
I didn't think he was that bad.
Yeah. Stephen Whittico, watching an NFC team that isn't the Detroit Lions humiliate KC in the Super Bowl is ass. Scale of 10, how worried should we be with the health status of the men's basketball team for Tuesday?
Tom Izzo said today that Jaden Akins is the only guy who didn't go during their workout Sunday, and he thought everybody was going to be able to practice on Monday. So I think they're going to be in a better condition. You want Akins, though, 100% just defensively and all that stuff, but I think they're going to be okay, and I don't think that sickness has run through the rest of the locker room any further.
Spartan 18770. Number 1, enjoy Jase Richardson while we can, people. Hashtag NBA. 2, instead of an NFL All-Pro game, the players should just play on Madden instead. It would have more interest than the crap they have now. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's people that watch video games. It's not for me.
I don't watch any of the All-Pros or the Pro Bowl stuff. I don't
watch any. They can do whatever.
Yeah.
Bibby next. Izzo was going to play Jase 20 minutes a game all year long until Fears was out. Nobody is more upset than Izzo, too. Richardson to the NBA draft.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like we talked about before. I mean, it may happen, it may not. He's certainly going to be a guy who will be in the draft if he wants to be, and so it'll be.
So what you're saying is it could go either way.
It could go either way.
Max next. Hot take. Thank God that Jase Richardson isn't 6'5". You'd be gone to the NBA after his performance against Oregon if he was. And baked, I have the perfect high school sports reporter for you after you buy the Mining Journal. Me. It would be a perfect fit as a retired teacher and coach. I have experience. I covered Gladwin and Beaverton for 4 years after I retired. I think that I would cover the entire UP on the $15,000 travel budget that you mentioned.
We'll make it happen. It sounds perfect. You and I will be a match, Max. I love this idea. Anybody else who has ideas how we can finance this idea of buying the Mining Journal?
You want a job at the LSJ?
The Mining Journal.
I know, but maybe just screw the Mining Journal. sounds like he's got talent.
The mining journal's the dream.
Fart Soup next. I'm listening to episode 241. I'm only 30 minutes in, and this by far the wildest podcast I've ever heard. Makes Rogan sound like NPR.
That is the Alex Sims,
Fart
Jason.
Soup, you need to listen to some more podcasts. There's no way that's the wildest shit you've heard.
I would be very curious to see. I'm going to have to go back and listen to episode 241. You can go and do it.
I'm sure it's terrible, but I'm sure there's nothing more wild than anything I say currently or I have on past shows.
We are out of time today. We are going to have to wrap it there. Apologize to all the other people who submitted your takes. Many of them will still work Wednesday, and we will get to them Wednesday as part of our Wednesday show. If it doesn't work after the Indiana game, I apologize. Mondays are a little hairy. We got a late start to the pod today, and we got to clear out of here for Ebling. You can listen to Ebling's show if you want more MSU basketball on the Spotlight Radio Network. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate Muskox. Go to gomuskox.com. And I'm telling you, you will not regret a Muskox flannel. You'll feel better. You'll look better. Fix it in post for $15 off. We appreciate Midtown Brewing Company. Great spot this week for any occasion. And also Pure Options. And if you're still listening, I hope you've got several MGs in you. PureOptions.com. We'll be back Wednesday after the Indiana game. Good show, man.
Yeah.
Couch in the Roof.